Welcome back to the Candy Colored Studio. I'm artist Katrina Berg, and this is episode 242. I tell you, friend, so often I get on here and I'm just having technical problems. I feel like it's just so crazy. I don't know about you, but I think I've had like 3 different YouTube channels. I don't know how these things happen. But it's like you have a channel, but then they want you to link the channel to your Google account, and then it just gets so complicated. So if anybody is following my original YouTube account, there's only like, I don't know, 5. Were there only 5 subscribers on there? Maybe only 5. If that's you, please go find the account that says 115. It's not very many subscribers, but I just deleted the one with the 5. So let's see how that goes. But this is the first time I'm going live with Riverside. So I use Riverside to record my podcasts. And they have a really great software, video quality, all the things. It's also complicated because for a while there, they started doing stuff with Spotify. And so I got a Spotify account. Anyways, I ended up with 2 accounts. There's 2 channels on Spotify with my podcast. Again, if you are on the new one, I'm not even going to tell you what to do right now because I don't even know what to do. I'm still like, it's kind of a mess. So I'm just letting you know if you feel like a mess from time to time, it's not just you. I'm having so many it's just technology accounts and they evolve, but then it just, for whatever reason, some of us just get lost in the shuffle because I don't know if it's like we join too early and then they change the system and they make it better, but then somehow you're stuck in the cracks. So, here we are. Okay, so let's talk about some gratitude because I'm like, oh, this is craziness. Okay, so gratitude. I really want to celebrate, I feel like I'm just grateful for celebrating growth. So if you look behind me, those of you that are watching the video or watching live, we got all these tables, everything's set up. My son's going to have his mission farewell here in a few days. And so we've been trying to figure out how to fit everybody into our house because we're going to have a cold front. And at first we thought, oh, we'll just do it outside. It'll be so nice. We can have as many people as we want and we'll have people eat outside. But Carl looked up the weather and it's going to be freezing. So we've been trying to figure it out. So the studio/living room is now an additional like eating area. But again, we just do the best we can with all the things. So we are not afraid to switch things up to make things work. And so that's what you're seeing behind me. So exciting. But we're excited. I'm celebrating and grateful for new directions and growth, especially with my son, Karsten. Do you want to see a cute picture? Let's see if I can show you. See if I can share a cute picture of him. Um, Maybe it'll let me. Oh, look at that. Okay, you should be able to see this cute picture of my son, Karsten. So he is going to go serve a 2-year church mission in Modesto, California. And he starts like the 28th, but his farewell is this Sunday. And that's just where they talk at church. And anyways, it'll be really great. So there he is. So cute. Okay, now that I did that, how do I stop the share? I don't know how to stop the share. There we go. Aha, stop the share. That was exciting. Okay, so that's what I'm grateful for right now. And what I'm manifesting is I've just been the more stuff that I hear about the hurricanes, you guys, it's hard. It's just really hard. I'm manifesting healing for those that are affected by the hurricanes. So many prayers out to you, your loved ones, anyone that has been a part of this. I do have a good friend who's an artist that is right there in the middle of it. Lots of other artists that are affected, and friends and family. And, anyways, yes. So that's what I'm manifesting. As for a studio update, I've been working on a tiny little collection for La Petite Maison Antique. They are in Paris right now. Well, they're in France. They landed in outside of Paris, and they're staying at the castle, which I honestly don't remember where it's at, but they're in France. And if you're not following them, go follow them because Amanda is already sharing lots of fun things in her stories, and you can kind of follow along the journey. La Petite Maison Antiques on Instagram. If you can't find it, just reach out to me and I'll help you. But it's always fun to see what they're up to, and they obviously they source all their antiques straight from France, and so they go and they get to experience things and buy things to ship over here, and it's very fun. So that's an update. I'll show you the pieces for that here pretty soon. I just need to I need to touch base with Amanda first when she gets a second, so that's coming. And then I'm working on a commission. I don't know if you can see it in the background, but I'm working on a big oval for Sweet Debbie in Park City. Really excited about that piece. It's been so fun to create and think about her. And I've been working with Jennifer Chipman of Bond Design, and they do the most incredible interior design. Like, I've always loved everything that I've seen from Jen. And then she broke off and started her own company with her daughter, thus Bond. Anyways, it's got a great vibe. They've got wonderful people that work there, like Claire. And I feel like I've met some other people, but I can't remember everyone's names. But they have the most charming workspace. They are in Park City, and they're above like a horse stable, and it is amazing. I'm gonna have to compile some videos that I did last weekend. They had an event and a showcase of one of the homes they've been renovating, which is right next to their work, their studio, and it was incredible. Like, I can't even tell you the amazing things. And then of course my artist friend Jordan Danes, who I love, she had some gorgeous pieces. Some of her lips were in the dining room. In the dining room, you like stepped up into it. It was so charming and quaint and like cozy, right off the great area, like the great room and the kitchen. And the kitchen had the most amazing island I've ever seen. It was so gorgeous. Had a gorgeous top. I don't even know what kind of stone it was, but then the bottom was a huge island, but it was like curved, and then it had the ribbing. I don't even know what the fancy interior design name is, but it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. But everything in that house was amazing. But yeah, so if you haven't, if you're not familiar with Jennifer Chipman and Bond, like, you've got to check them out. They're amazing. So that's who I'm doing this commission for, is one of their clients. Anyways, I'm so excited about it. Debbie is just a wonderful person, and it's been great working with her. And so that's exciting. So that's like kind of a quick studio update. As for a grief strategy, I was having a conversation with my mom this last few days. My parents are in town for Karsten's farewell, and so that's exciting. And also, they're here for other reasons, but we've been hanging out. And I was talking to her about my step grandma. So my grandpa remarried when I was probably 5 to my grandma Riva, and she's just an amazing woman. And um, we've kind of, I can't say we've lost touch with her, but because when my grandpa passed away, she already had so much family, and they kind of went one way and our family went another. And, I was in college. But anyways, I was talking to my mom about my grandma and how we went to her, I think it was her 90th birthday, and it was so much fun. We had such a good time. And she mentioned something about my mom, and I just remember telling my mom, you need to reach out to Grandma Riva. And she's like, well, I don't even have her contact information. And I just kind of let it go. But then when I talked to her the other day, she said something, and I just told her, I'm like, I got a feeling that there was something that wasn't quite right. And so we just kind of talked about that and what she said and what I remembered from what my grandma said. Like, things just seemed a little muddy. And so I just said to my mom, because my grandma, my Gigi, just passed away in August. And so my mom's been grieving her. Obviously, we've all been grieving her, and my grandpa's been gone for a while. And so I just was like, well, if you have any desire to fix this relationship, it would be great to just reach out to her and just, fix things. And just, I think there was some miscommunication. And so I guess the grief strategy is more about, if you're grieving a relationship loss, or you feel like there's been a strain. I know this is crazy. Like, if you haven't talked to somebody for a while, like, I am not a big fan of the Facebook. But in this case, like I told my mom, I'm like, I follow grandma on Facebook. And my mom's like, all my stuff comes back from her. I'm like, well, my Christmas card came back this last year too. And I haven't done anything about it. But I know like I'm connected with some of my cousins on Facebook. I'm connected with my grandma. I'm like, I think you can get a hold of her that way. And so this seems like a no-brainer, but I'm going to say it just in case maybe any of us need to hear this, because it's the thing that we need to be doing right now is to just actually pick up the phone or direct message somebody on Facebook or Instagram or however it is that you're connected with them and you haven't talked to them for a while. Like just make that connection. You just never know what's going to happen if you reach out. And I just kind of feel like life is too short. It's too short to let these things just, be muddy, whatever that looks like. It's worth it to just take a minute and reach out to the person we haven't talked to for a while. So sorry. Whew. So hard. So many things. Okay, let's talk about red pills. I mentioned how I'm manifesting healing for hurricane victims. Also for those in Poland with the floods. It's all kind of one thing because it all kind of started happening about the same time. But I started noticing things right away that sounded weird with the hurricane, specifically Helene in North Carolina, up in the Asheville area where they have lithium deposits, like huge deposits of lithium. There were some really strange things that I was hearing. And so if you are hearing strange things, or if you want to know like more information about what's actually happening, there's this great video that I just watched. I think he calls it the bear update, but I've been watching his videos and my friend sent me this one to his YouTube. I think I've just been getting clips from people on social media, but this is his actual YouTube. And if you have questions or if things have felt funny, I would recommend you watch that video and then decide what to do. But anyways, that would be the red pill for today. As for opportunities for collectors, I can't remember. I think I mentioned on the last episode that Nanette's Art Market was opening their own gallery space, like for art and really great handmade items. And it opened, and I got to go with my dear friend Laura Lee. We had such a good time. It was so fun to be with Laura Lee. We went and saw the gallery and went to just support and love on Nanette. And it's an amazing space. It's in Cottonwood. I will link to some stuff, but that is a great opportunity for those of you. And obviously that's an opportunity for collectors and artists, and definitely go check that out. And then tonight is the opening of the Springville Spiritual and Religious Show, and people have just started to post some of the video of some of the show, and it is looking amazing. So definitely get down and check that out. It's open till January, so you have plenty of time to go see that at the Springville Museum. Awesome stuff. Okay, other opportunities for artists. So for those of you that are like watercolor artists, or you want to try watercolor, or family members, if you are not familiar, my dear friend Nancy Andrick Olson has an amazing watercolor line. It's called her Brighter Pigments, and she actually makes the watercolor paint, and you can choose which colors you want. You can also get on her subscription where she just mails out one color every month. I think it's like $13. And so they come in a tray for those of you that are on watching the video. They're pretty small, but when you put them all together, you can have them in small tins, larger tins. Like she's got all kinds of options. But why it's so great that Nancy makes it herself is because when she says it's a brighter day pigment, like they truly are brighter. The pigments are absolutely amazing. So your watercolors your pieces will turn out so much brighter, which is really fun. And check out Nancy's art while you're on her website. It's nancyandruck.com. And then you can just click on the tab for Brighter Pigments. But I will link to it in the show notes. But also I wanted to let you know that she has released next 12 colors for 2025. So you can see what colors are going to be coming which month. So that is super exciting. And then the last opportunity for artists, and this is also just in general for entrepreneurs, there was an episode that Jenna Kutcher did. It's episode 804, and it's called Do These 6 Things Now to End Your Year Strong. So if you want to just like look at how you can really improve your business side of things before the end of the year and things to think about for next year, check out that episode 804. Again, I'll have a link in the show notes, and I'll also try to embed it right in the show notes in my website. So check that out. Okay, let's jump into this story. So I'm going to share a story with you that I heard. It may have been like 5 years ago. Yeah, I'm guessing between 4 and 5 years ago, and so I may not have all the details totally correct, but you'll get, like, the general essence of the story, okay? So, this beautiful artist that I know, she was part of our Candy Colored Club, which, I haven't talked about it for a long time because we haven't been doing it for a couple years, but it was kind of like a monthly subscription slash mastermind, and we had all these amazing artists from all over the country, including we had, a couple artists from Canada that joined with us, and we would have a topic every month, and we would get together. Like I would kind of create a lesson to share with everyone, and then also we would have a meeting, and everyone would come and share their experiences, ask questions. Like it was awesome. And this particular artist was part of that group. And I have to tell you that what was so great about that group was it wasn't necessarily anything that I was giving the artist. It was the fact that they were showing up saying, I'm ready to step up my game with my business, my art business, and I'm going to collaborate with other artists. I'm going to make friends. Like I just have loved watching these artists. They've all like totally just done amazing things, and I just love seeing everything they're doing. So this is one of those incredible artists, and I was friends with her even before the club, and I always loved her style, and I just can't say enough wonderful things about her and her work. She is a mother of small children. She's a busy woman, and yet she's doing amazing things with her art. So I'm going to give you just the basics of what she told me. We used to do these one-on-ones. I do one-on-ones with the artists, and it was really awesome. But she shared with me that her dad is also an artist, and that I think this had happened pretty recently from the time that she told me the story, but she was getting pushback from her family, not just from her dad, but like her family also, because they felt like, I don't know if it was they were telling her that she hadn't put in her due yet. And they were pushing back on her. They were telling her that she was charging too much for her work, that she was jumping too fast, that she was climbing too fast, that everything. And she was struggling because your family, your loved ones should be like your greatest cheerleaders, right? And I was kind of in shock that this was happening because as a parent, like I have no greater wish for my kids than for them to just succeed. And I hope that they do better than I do. Like Carl and I are constantly trying to teach our kids, like now what took us so long to figure out with entrepreneurship, we're like, we will help you build a business. We'll teach you these things. And we talk about, obviously we talk shop all the time at home. So I feel like it's really frustrating, but yet I've seen this before. I've seen the people that should be our biggest cheerleaders, I've seen them push back and belittle, tell us that for whatever reason, we can't do it because maybe we're not qualified. We don't have the big white lab coat, or we don't have the piece of paper that says we're official. But this was really, it was really frustrating. And at the time, I don't even remember what we talked about. Like if I gave her advice, I don't even know if it was even worth anything. But I will tell you that I have thought about that so much. And I just keep cheering her on from my side because I'm just like, it doesn't even matter. But let's talk about some stuff here. I feel like there are rules in our world. Some are written and some are not. Like, for example, if somebody's going to build a skyscraper. I really hope they're going to follow certain business like building codes because we want that skyscraper to stay up, right? And so like I get it. We want to have qualified people for doing specific jobs. I think it's also an unwritten rule that when we build a fire, whether it's in our fire pit outside, whether it's in the mountains, wherever, like we need to put it out when we're done. It's just an unwritten rule, right? Another one I thought of, eating popcorn for days on ends and may not be the best like health choices in the long run, right? Another unwritten law. Another one that is actually written is don't drink and drive. Like that's just like, yeah, we shouldn't do that. Or maybe we shouldn't be using our phone while we're driving. These are all things that are kind of no-brainers. But dear friend, let me just say, there are no there's no entrepreneurial police, okay? There is no one watching over things like this. So with my sweet friend, I understand that times change, and I'm just going to make a bunch of assumptions. I'm just going to say it, I'm just going to lay it out right now. I'm going to assume that my sweet artist friend, that her dad worked hard and that he really did all he could. He probably was an artist in the 80s. He followed the rules, these unwritten rules that kind of existed in the 80s, and he did all he could within his realm of what he could do as an artist to make a living for his family. They probably had a bunch of kids. He probably felt overwhelmed. He did all that he could, right? And he probably felt like a starving artist. I remember when I first started doing artwork, this is back maybe 2006, 7, oh gosh, not very far into the game, maybe 8 at the most, right? 2008. And Jason Juarez from, I think, is it Phoenix Gallery? Oh, this is bad. No, that can't be right. I'll think about it and I'll put it in the show notes. But he is in Arizona. He's got at least one gallery, and his dad was an artist, and he used to help his dad go to all the shows and do all the things. And so he learned a lot about art business, right? And so he started like writing books because he's like, artists are totally, they're starving for a reason. And so I remember going to, like, I think I read one of his books, and then I went to like he did a talk over at the Park City Arts, I don't know, at their facility. He did a talk and I went, and it was awesome, right? It was really fun to meet him and to get to hear him present on his idea. And I can't recommend his books enough. They're like in my resources page, but I'll link to it for you. But yeah, he's great. I remember him just talking about all the reasons why artists are struggling, right? And I'm guessing, I'm making huge assumptions here. I'm sure that my friend's dad did all that he could, and yet he probably felt like a lot of the artists that Jason talks about, right? And he was probably frustrated when his daughter comes in and just immediately starts succeeding, and then on top of it charging prices that weren't that different than what he was pricing, like where he was at. Okay, and I think that one of the reasons why the family was kind of like, I don't know, not being kind is because they felt like the dad had worked all these years to get to his prices. Well, again, there's so many things I could say about that, right? Like my friend also needs to make a living, and if people are buying the artwork at those prices, why is that a bad thing? And don't you want her to actually make money with her, like her skill that she's developed and all the hard work she's put in? So I have so many things I could say, but let's talk about pricing for a minute, okay? I think there are specific strategies that we can use to ensure success, but nothing is absolutely written. And I often talk with artists and we talk about like exactly what they can do, like specific strategies so they can get a good price per square inch. And we do the research and we we figure out like where these artists need to be compared to the market that we see right now, right? That's very specific. However, I will say if you're just getting started and you price your work too low, you might sell out. Is that a horrible thing? No, that's exciting. That's great. Now, over time, you might decide, okay, I'm not actually making any money. I'm selling a lot of work, but I'm not actually making any money with all that I'm doing, and I'm barely paying for my materials. That's not enough to live on. That's obviously why Jason Horace talks about the starving artist in his book, right? So I would say that over time, you can just gradually raise your prices so that you ensure that you're profiting, right? And naturally, very naturally, things will fall into place thanks to supply and demand. So, for example, if you did a bunch of 8x10s and they all sold out, you know that you need to raise your prices on your 8x10s. Maybe your 11x14s, you still have a handful. You don't even need to touch the pricing on that. Just raise the ones that are going up. You can change prices across the board, which I do recommend every year or two. I think that's a smart thing to do, or at least to consider. But sometimes you just need to look at specific products or sizes and say, okay, I'm out of this. I cannot keep these in stock. Clearly, supply is demanding, like, or the yes, because of supply and demand, we need to raise our prices on this particular item or size or whatever. Okay. Now, as you probably realized, if the work is good, it actually doesn't matter the price. I've seen this time and time again. It doesn't matter if it's a little high or a little low. The collectors are going to buy what speaks to them, right? So that's just one thing to consider with pricing. And we can talk a little bit more about that, but I think just as a general rule, like we can't, like it's just what it is. And then also I would say, because we have endured so much inflation, like in my adulthood, you really can't just judge things by what it was in the 80s or the 70s or whenever it was that my friend's dad first started creating. And so again, it's just really hard because timing is everything, right? Okay, so a few other things about these unwritten rules. Okay, so yes, there are some shows that are out there that you absolutely will be chosen based on a juror or a curator, and you don't necessarily, you have to follow the rules with that particular show. However, you can always create your own show. It doesn't matter if you've been creating for 2 months or 20 years, you can create your own show, whether it's on your website, your email newsletter, your social media. You can do it in person and rent a space. You can do it out of your home. You can borrow, you can like lease, you can, do collaborate with some local businesses. One of my very first solo shows was at the public library, and that was such a fun event. And I was like so honored to get to do that. It just felt like such a big deal. And I'm grateful for that opportunity, right? There's lots of opportunities. So if you feel like people are saying you're not good enough to get into this particular show, who cares? Just go do your own show, because you learn so much by doing your own show, right? And then eventually, you get to a point where maybe you don't even need to do some of those other shows, right? Maybe your sideways selling through the internet is just bypassing the time that you could be spending participating in somebody else's show, when you can just make all of the money yourself doing it yourself. Instead of giving half or 20% to somebody else, you can just keep all that money for yourself. So there's lots of options out there. Okay. Let's talk about putting ourselves in categories. Now, when I first started painting, every year, Nancy, who I mentioned that does the watercolor, she also is a gorgeous oil painter. She and I would do the Plein Air Paradise here in Midway, and it's always around the 4th of July. It's a really fun event. You get artists from all over that come and participate, professional, amazing plein air artists, all the way down to like, really, I decided to buy some paints last week and I'm going to go ahead and try plein air painting because I think it'd be fun. So when I first started, the first, like, I don't know, 5, 6 years that they did it, and remember, I did it like from the beginning, and they've been doing it for, I bet they're hitting their 20th year next year or something like that. It's crazy. But anyways, those first few years, they had 3 categories for artists. So when you brought your work in, then you had to have a tag, and it was color coded. And I mean, it changed year from year, but let's say the professional artists were blue, the amateurs were green. There was also a third category, and I can't remember what they called it, but there was a third category. And so for a couple years, I did the amateur division, and then I was doing the medium one. And finally, this beautiful artist friend of mine, Carrie Penny, and I will link to her because she's so great. Carrie said to me, because I was like, Carrie, I don't know which category. And she's like, Katrina, are you selling your work? I'm like, yes. She's like, then you're a professional artist. Just put your name on in the professional category. And so I wasn't worried about getting awards. I wasn't worried about any of those things. I needed to take responsibility for the time and effort I was putting in, and the fact that, yeah, if I'm going to be a professional artist, then I just need to say I'm a professional artist. This is what I'm doing. Sometimes we have to just take the plunge and just call ourselves what we actually are, right? But then also, let me ask a question. Does it actually help us to put ourselves in a category? Sometimes it doesn't even matter. It didn't matter that week if I was in the professional or whatever that middle category was. The important thing was that I was painting, that I was enjoying myself, that I was, I was having a good experience, right? Now, is there a time when having these categories can actually do more harm than good? Absolutely. Couple examples. I got interviewed by a magazine, I don't even remember the name, and there were some other local artists that I loved that were also in the magazine. And I remember this I guess the writer was talking about professional artists in Utah, and she mentioned all of us, and it was it was an honor to be included with a couple of these artists because in my opinion, I felt like they were much further down the road, their career road than I was. And I remember just being like really honored to even be included in that article, right? And then not very long after that, I was invited by the Zion's Art Show, the Zion's Bank Art Show, to do their Salt Lake show. And I'd only ever done the one in Provo. I'd never done the one in Salt Lake. But here was the caveat. I was going as an emerging artist. And at this point, I felt pretty solid in my category of a professional artist, right? And so I was like, I don't care. I'm just excited to do the show. Well, what happened was they ended up putting all these artists who, if I tell you their names, you're just going to die. I mean, Joseph Alleman was in the group, and Crystal Harper, and the Havoc. They're a couple, and I'm blanking on their first names. They were there. Oh gosh, who else was there? There were some very professional artists that were in this so-called emerging artist category, right? And it was so interesting. We didn't care. We thought it was funny, but what was not cool was that they stuck us all on one floor. I think we were on the same floor. And Crystal and Joseph were in like a totally different area. They were in like a conference room with a bunch of other artists. Like I say, I can't was Colby Sanford even in the he may have been in the emerging artist, and maybe even Megan Trueblood, and they were in this conference room, and to be an emerging artist that year in the show, and I think it was like 2018, 2019, and to be in this show you could only bring two pieces of art, but the people that were the like regular artists or whatever, they had a whole like regular booth of art. Okay, so you've got two pieces. Well, I'll tell you what I did, because I like to break the rules sometimes. So I took those mini circles, they're like 4 inches, and I painted a bunch of those. I probably brought 12, and I wore the skirt from, what is her name? She's so cute. My brain is not working, but anyways, this handmade skirt, and she had huge pockets in this skirt, and so I put those minis in my pockets. Okay, I just slid them in my pockets. And so when people would come and they knew me, they would be like, oh my gosh, you only have two pieces. I'm like, actually, I have a few more in my pockets. And I pulled them out. You guys, I sold some of those. I sold one of the two pieces that night, and then I sold a bunch of those minis that night. And my plan was, I think I even had some in the car, and I'm like, if I sell, more big ones, I can just go out to the car and bring some more in. But it was kind of a joke. It was such a joke, and we all were trying to make the best of it, but it was such a terrible experience. But to top it off, the worst thing was that they had put up a sign by the two rooms that all the emerging artists were in, and it said emerging artists. And so what would happen is these bank, I don't know, I don't know who these employees were, but they were like giving specific clients tours of the art. And when they got to our floor, I specifically saw the kid, and I say kid because he wasn't very old. I bet he was just straight out of college. And this is probably one of the reasons why this was such a mess, because number one, he didn't know anything about art. He didn't know anything about the show. It was it was such a mess. But anyways, he was taking some really high level people, and when I say high level, they were put in a category, and I'm just going to tell you they were put in that category. He was giving them a tour, and when they got to our door, I saw him say, "Oh, these are just the emerging artists. We can go up to the next floor." And I was like, okay, I learned a lot from that show. Number one, yes, it can actually it can do more, like, it can do bad just by putting people in a category. So again, let's go back to my cute friend. So my cute friend, my artist friend, her parents and her whatever family putting her in this emerging artist category instead of just giving, like, polishing her wings and, like, just giving her a hug and letting her fly, like, that held her back. Now, one more thing about the Science Art Show. It was that night that I decided I would never do the show again. You guys, I had opened one of the things you have to do to be in this show is you have to have an account at Zions Bank. So forever ago, I got an account, and so I was doing these shows down in Provo. It is so sad. I will never do their show again. And I keep saying that, and I keep hoping that I'm not going to have to lie about it and come out of retirement from that declaration. But so far, there's been no need to do that. So there you go. Okay, so let's talk about another thing that maybe my friend's dad might be thinking is he might be thinking, I'm not selling. So why am I not selling as much as my daughter? Okay. And again, I'm not even going to make assumptions with that. I guess I could say, okay, fine, I'll make an assumption. My friend's art is amazing. Like, she has a very distinct style. When you see it, it's hers. It's happy, it's uplifting, it's beautiful. She sells a lot of work. Okay. Her dad, I still don't know who he is. I don't know. Like, I feel like they did an event here in Midway, the Art Around the Square, maybe their first year that they did it. And I didn't have time to do it. I think I was going with Anna Claire because she was doing a dance competition in Florida. Anyways, I think for whatever reason, I was too busy. I didn't go to it. So I went over to go say hi to there were several of the artists from the Candy Colored Club that were doing the Art Around the Square. And so I went to go say hello. And I think I walked by my friend's dad's booth. Okay. Now, I didn't recognize his art. And it was a style that looks like so much art that I see. Okay. I'm just going to say that. And so it was nothing that stood out to me. Now, when you go to events like that, if you have artwork that stands out, obviously you're going to get more eyeballs on it. People are going to be more interested. Okay. All right. Let's go to this is another experience that a friend had. This is not the same friend. Just putting it out there, and I'm not going to use names. But my friend told me, this is pretty recent, and she told me how she was at a show, and at the end of the night, a bunch of the artists were just chatting, and one of them came over to her and said, I didn't sell. And it's like, okay, this is what the artist said. Your prices are too low, and it's affecting the rest of us. This is what this artist said. Okay. And so I think this is a common thing that artists can think. I'm not selling, therefore it must be your fault. Okay. So again, this friend was getting bullied about her pricing. And she said, this is what the one person said to my friend, you're only selling because your prices are lower. Okay, let's ask ourselves, is that really the reason why my friend was selling and this other artist or artists in this group weren't selling? Most likely it isn't. It most likely has no correlation. Okay. There are so many reasons why the group that found that they weren't selling as much could have been having a slow night. And I'm guessing that 90% of it had nothing to do with my friend. If I asked a collector who bought from my friend that night, they would probably say they liked it better than what they saw in the other artists' booths. Yes, maybe the price deterred them just a little bit, but I will say that in general, I've noticed that artists they will buy whatever they like. So here's a little exception to the rule. One of my favorite shows, the $100 show. I've talked about it a lot on here. Again, everything at the Springville Museum during the $100 show is $100. So you have artists, and I'm not going to put anyone in a category, but you have artists that are very professional that have been doing it for a long time and they have high prices. There are other artists that have lower prices. Maybe they are new artists. Maybe for some reason they just don't have higher prices, right? But when you do the $100 show, you have to find something within the price points that you're selling, right? Because as a general rule, you don't want to be selling on your website a painting for $10,000, but then you show up at the show and you just sell it for $2,000. Like that's not typically a good practice because then you kind of devalue your art, right? And so what will happen for the $100 show is you will have some artists, they will do smaller works just for the $100 show. And then there are some artists that might be a little bit newer that will bring pieces that are a little bit bigger. Okay. So there were a few, my first year at the $100 show, I think I did 7x7s, 8x8s, decent size. I sold quite a bit. The last time I did it, I did those tiny little circles and I still sold quite a few, maybe not as much as the year before. I mean, I can't remember if I did it for 4 or 5 years. I don't remember, but every year I had to go a little bit smaller because I was selling those products. I needed to get it close to what I was already selling it for. Otherwise, it's not fair to the other collectors, right? When they buy my work, you don't want them to. Anyways, I don't mind having a deal every once in a while, but it can't just be a regular thing because it's not fair to the people that buy it at the higher price, right? Okay, so there were the last year I was there, I remember there were some artists that had really big, like 18 by 24 and 20 by 20, like big canvases, and they were selling them for 100. And people were so excited, and they went home and they just felt like they had this they got this amazing deal from this newer artist. And and they did. They totally got a deal, and I think it's amazing. So here's the difference: when you go to the $100 show, you know you're going to pay $100 for everything there. You also know that you might get something really special that's small, and you might get something really amazing that's big. You know, it's just that's what's going to be there. But I've noticed that when I go to shows where people are selling bigger artwork, again, it's all about if the collector likes it. You know, if there's a piece that's like 20 by 20 and then there's another piece that's 16 by 16, it's not the price that's going to deter me, it's which piece I like better. And that's just me personally, but I think that's pretty consistent with my collectors as well. Anyways, so I'm just going to put that out there. Now, another experience with artists being upset about pricing. Now, this happened pretty early in my career. I remember going to one of my first art markets, one of Nanette's art markets, Utah Art Market, and I didn't have any prints. I only had originals. I had never done prints, and so I just sold originals. It was very exciting, but I knew that in order to do well at a market, I needed to have a range of price points. I knew that would be a really good thing. And so I looked around to see what other people are doing. And one of the artists was selling these gorgeous prints for $5. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. How is he selling them for $5? I'm like, that's so cool. I'm like, I don't have the capacity to sell it for that cheap. I think honestly, I know this artist and I'm pretty sure he was buying these prints in bulk. He probably pays 25 cents for each print. So he can sell it for $5. He's making a profit and he's giving a really nice print to his collectors and future collectors, right? So what I've noticed and what I decided with this particular artist is that his $5 print, was like a really big business card. And when they hung it on the wall, it just reminded them about how much they loved this artist's work. And eventually, I think a lot of them decided to buy originals. And this is pretty typical with art. Like you buy something smaller until you can save up and get something bigger. I just think it's a great way to promote your art. Again, it's the biggest business card I've ever seen, but I think it's really done, like it's been really good for this particular artist. He's doing awesome. So I remember I said, okay, well, I'll do some prints. I just want to do something easy. It doesn't need to be super high quality. I've never done it before. So we went and we bought some archival plotter paper to put in my husband's engineering printer. It's called a plotter, and it comes in a big roll. And we bought this archival paper. We got some ink. Anyways, we did the best we could with the resources that we had. I decided to charge for those like $10. They were $10. So it was twice as much as I'm just going to tell you, it's Kirk Richards. I was twice as much as Kirk's beautiful $5 prints. The quality was not anywhere near as good as Kirk's, but I was like, I can't charge $5 because I think my materials cost $5. Anyways, so I do that. And then what happened was my friends, some of my artist friends, by this point, I actually had artist friends, and they were like, Katrina, you're ruining everybody's print pricing, like because your pricing's so low. I'm like, but look at Kirk. Like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, I know, I'm not in the same category. I said the word. I'm not in the same category as Kirk, but I listened to what they said. I knew they were right. So eventually, within a few years, I saved up enough and bought my own Epson printer. And so now I do my own fine art prints right here in the studio. And you can buy them on my website, and they are high quality. And yes, they cost more than $5, but it is a really nice print. And I feel good about the price that I'm charging for those. But it was one of those things where I knew that my friends were frustrated, but at the same time, like I looked at their prints and honestly, they were nicer than mine. And so if it were me, if I liked my friend's work so who cares if it was like $40? I'm going to pay the $40 for that print because I like that person's artwork and I want that print. I'm not going to pay $10 for mine just because it's $10. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, enough about pricing. Okay, so let's have one more thought here. So I share these very personal stories because I think it's really easy to look at others, but it's most important to look at ourselves. So these are the questions that we can ask ourselves. How can I improve my process? How can I refine my technique? How can I communicate better about the meaning of my work? How can I encourage those experiencing my work to have their own experiences? Perfect example there. There are some artists out there, Brian Krasicnik, for example, he doesn't like to give meaning for his work. He likes people to come up with their own meaning, which I think is great, right? And so that's why I say, how can I encourage those experiencing my work to have their own experiences? So I think that's something that Brian is really good at saying, what do you see? What do you experience from this? Like, this is for you to have your own experience. I think it's great, right? So whether you choose whichever way you choose to go. Like for me, I personally think I create with specific things in mind. I don't mind sharing what that means, but I'm also very welcome. Like I want people to have their own experiences. So I kind of tread both of those. So there you go. Here's another question we can ask ourselves. How did I prepare for this event? Did I send out an email? Did I send out multiple emails? Did I promote the work on all the platforms? Did I send the series or the show to a radio, a podcast, TV spot, print newspaper, or other articles and interviews on blogs? There's lots of ways that we can get the work out there, right? But if I didn't do the work to get the stuff out there, is it really my friend's fault because she sold more work than me? If I didn't do the work necessary and I just showed up, that could be the main reason why I didn't sell as much, right? Okay. Also, another thing we can ask ourselves, was the event on a good day or was it a good time of day? So when I did my solo show last year, it was in the spring because the whole series was about spring and flowers and all this fun stuff, obviously deeper symbolism too. But we wanted it in May for that reason. Now, the hard thing about May is that that particular week, there was so much going on. Everybody's kids had like end of school concerts and games and events and banquets, and there was a million things going on, right? And so sometimes that really prevents people from coming to a show. So timing is important. It's not everything though. So for example, my beautiful friend Laura Lee, she came anyways. She's like, I'm supposed to be at this play, but I came, and I just love her for that. Like, she reminded me of that the other day, and I was like, oh, Laura Lee is the best. But anyways, the people that couldn't go that night, they came during the day. I had so many friends and family and collectors go during the day. In fact, Alpine Art told me, they said, we haven't, like, you kind of broke records with traffic. We've never had so many people come in for a show. So that was really exciting. But I will say a lot of those people, they came in during the day. And just FYI, I can't go tonight because we have other things going on. So I won't be at the Springville Museum, which I'm really sad about, but I can't be there. So what I do love is going by myself to the museum. And so Carl and I are going to go like next week, and that'll be so great. And sometimes it's fun to go twice. Like, I love going to an opening, but then I also like to go by myself so that I have time to really take in everything that's in a show. So I think, again, sometimes it's just the day. So there's so many things. So this is kind of so yeah, so we have to ask ourselves, what can I be doing? Instead of blaming on other people, what is it that I can be doing to up my game, right? Like, if we go back to my friend whose dad is frustrated, things are changing. So what are you doing? What are you doing to change with the times, right? I know it's hard. It's sometimes we have to change with technology, but at the same time, like, sometimes you have to step it up. And you can either step it up and embrace change, or you can just be okay with the fact that you don't want to do certain things. Like, you won't find me doing certain, I'm not doing a lot of social media. So that's okay. I know that a lot of people are succeeding because of social media, but I personally have decided not to do it. But I'm not going to blame the people on social media and say you're having a better art career than I am just because I'm not doing what you're doing on social media. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. So why are we imposing rules when there really are none? So here's some questions. So I think about my friend. This is a horrible thing to say, and I'm making a big assumption, but is it possible that her dad is jealous because she's doing so well and he thinks she's doing nothing? But you guys, she works so hard. She she's a hard worker. So I'm sorry if he's jealous. But it frustrates me because how many times in our life do we feel like people put us in a box and then they won't let us out of the box, right? Like, I've felt this in so many aspects of my life. I'm like, there's a ladder. Just move so I can climb out with the ladder. But they don't. They get out of the box themselves, but then they don't want anyone else to get out of the box. Anyways, I think we can all rise together. I really believe that. I don't just think it, I know it to be true. I've been parts of little artist groups, masterminds, and I have watched everyone rise together. The Candy Colored Club is a perfect example of that. Those ladies worked and rose together, and some of them are like still super close, and I just love that. It makes me so happy. But again, the time and technology, all those things, the strategies, the trends, they are going to change, and it's crucial to be aware of those trends and strategies and changes so that we can pivot if we have to, if we need to. But again, it's a choice. It's never has anything to do with anyone else, right? And there's nothing wrong with doing something different. Just because you don't want to do a certain thing, it's totally fine. Ride your own, rail. It's totally cool. But again, this is why it's so important to have good support system for artists. And I would just say, if you haven't heard episode 31, this is super old, but it's called A Support System for Artists and Why You Need It Most. And I would say that has been a huge success thing for me, just because I have always known that Carl's in my corner, that my kids they're great supporters, and that has helped me a ton. And you may not always have a spouse, but you can get another artist friend, you can have another creative friend that's supporting you. I think it's really important to have a support team, and it doesn't have to be more than 1 or 2 people. It's really nice if it's more, but you need to have that. So the other thing is sometimes we're going to feel alone in this journey, and some people will say, "Oh, you just got to develop thick skin." Well, we don't necessarily want to be callous, but we do want to become resilient, right? We want to dig in and we want to remind ourselves why we create. Why are we creating? Why am I getting up to paint today? What is it that I'm really trying to communicate, right? And then when we see someone that's struggling the way that we struggled, it's really important to help people out. And then we won't feel so alone, right? And then I think too that we can have success through perseverance. My cute friend, I am so honored to know her as an artist. I'm so honored to watch her art journey. And I will say she's just so brave and courageous. And so I would say let's be like my friend and let's be courageous even when the people that we love that should have our back are not being helpful. We can take courage and we can find people in our corner that will support us. And life is going to throw us some curveballs. And yes, it's okay to take a break from one to like every once in a while. Sometimes we have to take a break and we got to process what's happening. We got to heal. But then when we're ready, let's jump back in. So let me end this episode and let's say, like my beautiful friend, let us learn the strategies, let us improve ourselves, look within, and finally go create. Much love to you from the Candy Colored Studio.